Hello, everybody. Welcome into the voice of college football. I am Matthew Miller, your host today. We are brought to you, though, like I said, by Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. If you guys are new here, please hit that like button, subscribe down below. And if you're not new, still hit that like button. It really helps out. Leave your comments, questions, concerns. I will be here as many Tuesdays as possible leading up to the season and also in the season. In the season, we'll probably break down the game of the week that we're in. And also, I will be here for post-game talk and chatter. So please go over to the Texas channel and subscribe, please. That's your only assignment today for those of you in the chat right now and those of you that will watch in the future. Go over to the Texas channel and subscribe. It helps out Mark. It helps out everyone else on this channel. We're trying to go a big brand of college football here, so please do that. Texas, 8-5 last year. For those of you who didn't pay attention to Texas, even though I think a lot of people do pay attention to Texas for good or for bad. As I can see, we got some comments already ready for Texas's back jokes. Yeah, John, we're as Texas fans, we kind of deserve those, I would say. I don't think we deserve a lot of those. I don't think that is brought on by the fan base for the most part. That was brought on by Sam Ellinger, but we love that guy, so I'll stand behind him. If you want to throw those jokes in the chat, go ahead. I think not many people will be laughing at the end of this year. Let's put it that way. I think this year is going to be phenomenal for Texas football. And we're going to jump into the recap of the offseason. Obviously, you guys may not be Texas fans, but you're here watching. So, and you may not follow the program closely, so you may not have realized what has happened. Over the course of the offseason, we have lost multiple guys to the transfer portal, but also to the NFL draft. Some of these offseason losses that are key, in my opinion: Anthony Cook, Bijan Robinson, Ovia Gofu, Junior Angulau, Mora Ojimo, Keandre Coburn, DeMarvion Overshown are the ones that come to mind. Bijan Robinson obviously gets drafted in the top 10 overall with the Atlanta Falcons. Over 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns last year for the Texas Longhorns. It's going to be a lot of production to a lot of production to replace. We'll see if we can get that from anyone in our running back room. I think we have a lot of talent there. With Jonathan Brooks, Cedric Baxter, a 5-star coming in, Jaden Blue, a 4-star from last year's recruiting class, and then Keelan Robinson, who gets left on a little bit too as well. Ovia Gofu, pretty good on defense, not great, but he was 6th in tackles last year, 5th in tackles for loss. I think we'll get more production from the linebackers this year than in Ovia Gofu, but he does hurt depth-wise. He transferred to LSU. Junior Angulau started 34 games for us. He's gone. But again, a lot of talent on that offensive line brought in by one of the best recruited offensive lines ever by Kyle Flood last year. So I really like that group going forward. I think they're going to take a step forward this year. They were good last year, especially Kelvin Banks, who was fantastic in his game started and played last year. Cole Hudson was okay at the left guard spot. I think he will be better as well. I think Kelvin Banks, though, has the potential to be a top 10, top 15 NFL pick when he comes out after next year, if he decides to do that and if he keeps on the same trajectory. We'll see about that, though. Obviously, DeMarvion Overshown was 2nd in tackles behind Jalen Ford, who got absolutely robbed for Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year last year. He had a total of 96 total tackles, DeMarvion did, and he has gone in the NFL. So those are some key losses on the defensive side of the ball and offensive side of the ball for this team, mostly on the defensive line, honestly. Losses at the coaching staff. Now, this is important. Brennan Marion, he was the wide receivers coach last year, co-offensive coordinator, I guess. He did a lot of stuff for us on offense. He was an offensive assistant coach, I should say. He is the offensive coordinator at UNLV. He is gone now. Chris Jackson replaces him. He was with the Jaguars last year, played 5 years in the NFL, coached 5 years in the NFL. So I think scheme-wise, I don't think we lose much. If anything from that, we may have gained something. Recruiting-wise is going to be the interesting one. Brennan Marion was a very good recruiter. Chris Jackson, I don't know. He's never been a college coach, so I have nothing to go off there. We'll have to see how he does. We also lose Gary Patterson. He was a special assistant to the head coach last year. He retired in the offseason. I do think there's a chance he comes back middle of the season if the defense isn't up to par, but I think it will be. I think the defense is going to take a step forward or at least be the same as it was last year. So we'll see on that. But Gary Patterson had an interview with Colin Cowherd about a month and a half, 2 months back, and talked about he kept using us and we when talking about Texas. So if he does come back to coach, I think he's going to come back for us, unless he gets a really good head coaching job, which I don't really see happening at this point, but we'll have to see. Some of the additions that we had this year coming through the transfer portal or from obviously recruiting. Obviously, everyone knows about the one, the only Arch Manning. Arch Manning is one of those guys everyone in college football knows about just because of the last name, because Peyton and Eli and his dad Archie, or not his grandfather Archie, sorry about that. And he's one of the highest rated high school players of all time. He struggled during the spring game, wasn't great. And I didn't expect him to be great, honestly. I know there was all this talk, is he going to be the starting quarterback? Every Texas fan you talk to that's in the know or that knows what they're talking about will tell you Arch Manning was never going to be the starting quarterback for Texas. There was no chance of that happening. It was going to be Quinn Ewers this year and then Arch Manning next year if Quinn Ewers excels and goes to the NFL, and I do think that will happen. Now, there is a wrench thrown in here, and that is Malik Murphy. Malik Murphy is a sophomore. He's learned under Sark last year. He has a cannon, guys, a cannon. As a junior in high school, 78 yards thrown. So this guy he can play. He's a high 4-star recruit. I think Malik Murphy has a chance to win that job next year. We'll have to see, though. Obviously, you bring in Anthony Hill, who was the second best linebacker recruit in the nation, into this recruiting class. He will start from day one. I think he's going to be fabulous from day one. You have two very good linebackers on this team, in my opinion, in Anthony Hill and Jalen Ford. So I think that's an upgrade over last year, where that was a soft spot. Because if Jalen Ford went down, you really didn't have much there. DeMarvion was good last year. He wasn't as good as the year before. Next up, we got Cedric Baxter coming into my opinion, one of the most talented running back rooms in the country. I don't know if it's one of the best, but it is one of the most talented right now. You have a 5-star in Cedric Baxter. You have Jonathan Brooks coming back. I think he's going to have a fantastic year. You have Keelan Robinson, who is dynamic out of the backfield catching. You also have Jaden Blue, who can also catch out of the backfield very, very well. So I think that's a really good group. But it is not as good as this group. Jonte Cook comes in as a 5-star recruit out of high school into the wide receiver room. You got A.D. Mitchell, you got Isaiah Nair, you got Xavier Worthy, you got Jordan Winnington, you got Jonte Cook, you have DeAndre Moore, who's very good. Go watch his film. That man is a blazer at wide receiver, fast as hell. So that is a loaded room. This is the best wide receiving room we've had in a long time. I'm really excited to watch them. I'm really excited to watch Isaiah Nair. He is a key addition. Even though he isn't someone who transferred in or who's a freshman, he transferred in last year, so I still count him because he got hurt. He tore his ACL, wasn't able to participate in last year's season, but he had 12 touchdowns coming in from Wyoming 2 years ago. He averaged over 20 yards a catch. The guy he would have been an NFL player. I think I talked about this on his channel actually last year. If Isaiah Nair is healthy, I believe he's a 3rd or 4th round pick. He's got that big playability. I think he's going to help out this team a lot alongside Xavier Worthy, take some of the pressure off of him. I think he is a top 3 wide receiver in the country. Obviously, you have the 2 guys from Ohio State, and then I think you have Xavier Worthy. Next, wide receiver room again, A.D. Mitchell. He's considered a 5-star transfer, according to 247, a 4-star coming out of high school. He has 38 receptions with 26.7 yards per catch at Georgia, and an offense that, let's be honest here, isn't very explosive. So I think those numbers will increase here. He's been apparently unguardable in practice so far. And I believe that, especially alongside Xavier Worthy, like, who are you going to key on in this offense is going to be interesting. Especially, we haven't even talked about Jatavian Sanders, in my opinion, the second best tight end in college football. I think he's the number 1 tight end prospect, though. There's a difference in the NFL and college, guys. And I think Jatavian Sanders will be better than Brock Bowers in the NFL. Next up, we have Jalen Catalon coming in from Arkansas. Very good player. Very good player. The issue with him is injuries. He's injured all the time. In fact, he's in his 4 years with Arkansas, he played 18 games. That's an average of 4.5 games a season. That's not good enough. We'll see if he can improve on that. If he's healthy, he's very good. In his one season, in fact, where he was healthy. Here we go. 10 games, basically, the whole season. 99 total tackles, 3 interceptions. Those are very good numbers for a safety. The issue is health here, guys. If he's healthy, he's going to start, and he's going to play very well. Next up, we have Gavin Holmes, Wake Forest cornerback transferring in. Tall guy, 5'11", very lengthy. In the 22 games he played with Wake Forest, he had 45 tackles and 1 interception with 3 passes defended. And those are just the games I counted from his sophomore and junior season. I didn't count his freshman season. He only played 2 games there. I'm not going to put that on that guy. But overall, I think Texas added a lot of talent, a lot of depth. I think the key in most of these areas obviously will be health. If we can stay healthy, I think we have a chance to do big things this year, guys. I really believe that. And D4, who was my co-host last year on the postgame show, and I talked about if this team progresses like they should and adds the players like they should, like they always have, the talent at the positions, the offensive line is the best we've had in a long time, and the defensive line is the best in a long time. Last year, we said this is the year, guys. If we cannot win the Big 12 this year, I don't know what's going to happen in this program. I'm honestly scared at that point because we're the best at almost every position you look at in the Big 12. I think we have one of the two best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the Big 12. We have for sure the best offensive line in the Big 12. We have for sure the best cornerbacks in the Big 12. We have for sure the best wide receivers in the Big 12. We're almost guaranteed to have one of the two best rooms at every place we look at on this team. We need to win the Big 12. It has to happen this year. Sark has to prove it. Sark has yet to prove it. I think people are a little bit too hard on Steve Sarkisian on a couple aspects. They look at his head coaching record. Go look what he inherited at Washington, guys. That was an 0-12 team. I believe the year after he took over, they were 6-6. The year after that, they were 7-5 or 8-4. So he did a pretty good job with that team. He underachieved a little bit at USC, but again, I think that mostly had to do with his struggles with alcoholism. He's put those to bed. So I think this is his best chance to succeed as a head coach this year, and I think he's going to do it. I really do believe in this team. I think we're going to win 10 games minimum. I think we're a 10 or 11 win team with the schedule. Alabama obviously will be the test early on, and as we go on these Texas Tuesdays, like I said, I'll be here almost every week leading into the season, and I'll be here every week during the season. I will break down these games probably one or two a week, including the Alabama game. I think next week we're going to break down the Rice and Alabama game and how I think we'll perform in those games and what our record will be. So stay tuned for that. And again, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. If you guys come in and do this for us and keep this conversation going, I will be here for at least 2 hours. Obviously, so we need you guys to come in here, hit the like button, subscribe, go over to the Texas channel, especially we are trying to grow that channel, guys. Can you please go over there, hit that like button and subscribe on that channel as well? It really helps out, guys. It really does. Like I said, I'll be here for the post-game shows, the 40 Acres live post-game show is what we call it. I'll be here after every game, period. I was here last year after every game. I think in the 2 years that I've been doing it, I missed one. So I will be here. So please go do that, guys. We're going to get to your comments right now. And that's fair. I'm not a damn beast media. The Bowers take is nuts. I didn't say Brock Bowers wasn't a better college player. I think he's a better college player than Jatavian Sanders. This is my comparing into the NFL. I think Brock Bowers is Hunter Henry. I think he's a really good blocker, and you can use him in the red zone, but I think he's going to disappear in the NFL in between the 20s. I think Jatavian Sanders is more like an Antonio Gates, someone like that, where he's your main weapon, honestly. That's just my take. I can be completely wrong on that, guys. I have a lot of hot takes when it comes to stuff like this. I think Jonathan Brooks is going to put up better numbers in his career than Bijan Robinson. I know that's a freaking hot take, but I think it's because of the offensive line he's going to be playing behind. Bijan made a lot of yards out of nothing last year, guys. That offensive line wasn't great. It was good, but it's only going to continue to get better with guys like Cole Hudson, Kelvin Banks, Cam Williams, Nato Uza. I can't even pronounce his name. I'm not even going to try. Nato O is what we're going to call him. There's so much talent on that offensive line that I think that's why I think Jonathan Brooks will have a better career than Bijan. I'm not saying he's a better player at all. I think Bijan's going to be a top 3 running back in the NFL this year. So I'm not saying that. Again, listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying that having better stats doesn't mean you're a better player. Let's see. Get some more comments. I don't know about that. Brock Bowers can play tight end, or you can put him out wide. This dude can block 100%, and that's where I think most NFL teams will see Brock Bowers and see his blocking ability and use him a lot at times doing that when they should be throwing him out wide. It also depends where they get drafted, honestly, guys. I think athletic-wise, I think Jatavian's a little bit more of an athlete than Brock Bowers. Not as good of a blocker by far. But the thing is, where do they get drafted? So that has the ability on there too. But I really do believe Jatavian Sanders is tight end 2 in college, and I think he's going to be better in the pros. That's my opinion. I could be wrong on that completely. Someone could jump out of nowhere out of this tight end class, which is a very talented tight end class, and surprise and pass both those guys. Brock Bowers might throw a touchdown pass this year here first. That's a possibility. I think it's going to be interesting to watch Georgia this year. I think there's a couple teams to keep an eye on. Obviously, Ohio State, Kyle McCord, sorry. Georgia with their quarterback battle, and Alabama with their quarterback battle. I mean, this is a very wide open and interesting year, and that's why, as a Texas fan, when you bring back the talent that you do on the offensive line, we're bringing back all 5 starters from last year. You bring back Quinn Ewers, again, we're the highest rated quarterback prospects in the history of high school recruiting. You have a good and talented running back room, unproven but talented, and then you have the wide receivers that we have, the cornerbacks that we have on the defensive side, the linebackers that we have on the defensive side. I think the weakness on the defensive side is going to be safety if Jalen Catalon does get hurt, or Jaron Thompson. And then the defensive line is unproven for the most part. We don't really have any guys there that have had great seasons. We have guys that have had production, like a Barron Sorrell or an Alfred Collins, but none of those guys have lived up to their potential, in my opinion. I think Barron Sorrell, honestly, on the defensive line, if you guys remember watching the TCU game last year, was spectacular. I think he's got a chance to be a very good player coming back this year and possibly gain some traction in the NFL draft. So that's the one guy I would keep an eye out on. If you're anyone who follows defensive line production in the NFL draft for Texas, I think Barron Sorrell has a chance to be that guy jumping up in mock drafts. I think he can be very good. He was phenomenal in that TCU game. Another guy on defense that I don't believe gets enough praise is Jahdae Barron. He was great in that game as well. He's going to be at he plays all over on defense. They bring him into the box sometimes, but he plays cornerback and safety most of the time. He's been great. So that's going to be very interesting to watch him as well. I think those are 2 guys that can jump up and probably be maybe first or second round picks in the NFL draft. I think Jahdae Barron's really got a chance of that. I think if Barron Sorrell breaks out and plays at the standard that he did in the CCU game, then I think he's got a chance to do that as well. Ooh, that's a good question. Let's go. Will freshman Derek Williams start this year on your defense? Probably not. I find that hard to believe with the guys we have on defense. He'll get playing time, no doubt. I don't think he'll start this year. Overall, I think our defense is basically locked in. I don't think we're deep on the defensive side of the ball yet where we need to be like we are on the offensive side of the ball. But we're definitely to the point to where I trust probably 13 to 14 guys, and Derek Williams isn't one of those guys yet. But who knows? I mean, this coaching staff has done a good job of getting guys at that 3-star level that surprise me and perform. So he could be one of those guys. We'll have to see. But it's going to be an interesting year for guys like Derek Williams, see if they can get playing time. I don't know if that's the case this year. We'll see down the road. There are multiple guys I thought were going to get playing time this year that transferred. Travell Johnson, Brennan Thompson, to name a few, and they all transferred. So it'll be interesting to see. Derek Williams could be one of those guys where he, comes in this year and transfers next year. I could see that. It's hard to tell in this era of NIL whether guys really want to come to your school for playing time, or they love Texas, or they come for the money for 1 year and then bounce. It'll be interesting to see with Derek Williams. I think it really tells me a lot about a guy if he comes in and he's willing to sit a year and then he's willing to learn behind these guys and then eventually get his time to shine when it is his time to shine. We'll see. I think that's the case with Derek Williams. I think there's going to be a lot of sitting for him this year. I think there's a chance that he performs well next year if he's willing to stay. Let's see. Hey, Jackson, I'll be honest, I could see Texas possibly upsetting Bama on the road if Quinn Ewers didn't get hurt against Bama. Last year, they most definitely would have beaten Bama. I don't know about most definitely, but again, Hudson Card comes in, plays the rest of that game with a bum ankle after the first, series I believe he was in. He hurt his ankle, and we almost beat him. It's 20-19. It was a very good game. There's multiple – I hate to bring this up. I really do. Go back and watch the game. Multiple plays where Xavier Worthy gets grabbed in the face mask. They don't call the Bryce Young intentional grounding, which should have been in the end zone. So, yes, I do agree. If Quinn Ewers, for the most part, stays healthy, we probably win that game. I'm not going to say for certain that we do, but I think we do win that game. And it's going to come down to, can Quinn Ewers perform to that level? Because the issue with Quinn Ewers last year was we watched him in that Alabama game and we said, wow, this kid's amazing. He threw a lot of dimes in that game, especially the deep ball. It was spectacular. The rest of the year, he was so inconsistent with that, guys. In the Oklahoma State game, he was the reason we lost that game, guys. We barely lost that game, and he was under 45% completion percentage for the game. He was terrible, terrible. If he could have been 55%, we probably win the game. He's so inconsistent last year. I will say this. I think the hype did get to his head, but I think he's been humbled by what happened last year. If you go look at him, he's lost probably about 15 pounds. He's been in the weight room. He cut his hair. He looks a lot more serious this year, guys. And I really believe there's going to be an ascension from Quinn Ewers this year. I think Quinn Ewers is going to be a top 5 quarterback in college football. And I know I'm a Texas fan, and I know you're thinking, oh, this guy's just saying this because he's a Texas fan. I was low on Texas last year compared to most people. I thought I predicted the record exactly right. I said 8-4. I was wrong on one game. I believe I thought we would lose to Kansas State and beat Oklahoma State. That was it. I think we're going to go win 10-plus games this year. I really believe that. There's something about this team, about how quiet the offseason's been, because that's not a normal Texas thing. Usually the offseason is the most loud Texas gets because we underperformed during the season. I think it's going to be the opposite this year. I think we're going to be quiet during this offseason like we have been. I think we're going to win 10-plus games, win the Big 12 next year. I fully believe that. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I fully believe that. Hey, John, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people predicting Texas to beat Alabama. I don't know if we're going to do that. Like I said, that's why I say 10, maybe 11 wins, because I think one of the losses, if we do lose 2 games, 1 game, it's going to be most likely to Alabama. If anyone wants to drop who they think is going to beat us in the Big 12, go ahead. I don't think there's a team that should compete with us. If Texas does what they should do, which hasn't happened in a very long time, there shouldn't be a game within 10 points of any Big 12 team this year, period. No, there's not enough talent. Oklahoma doesn't even have enough talent. Their defensive line, they don't have one. They're going to be pretty good on offense. I think they'll be better on defense, but they were one of the worst defensive teams in the country last year. So if you're a little bit better, I think they'll win 1 or 2 more games than they did last year, but they're not as talented as us guys. I think the only team that kind of scares me, because Kansas State comes into Texas this year. I don't think they're beating us at home. For whatever reason, Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech with Joey McGuire and his staff, I think they got a chance. But again, we lost to them last year when we should have beat them. We were up by 2 touchdowns and blew that lead. I don't think they come into Austin and beat us. So Baylor is the other team that comes to mind. I think for whatever reason, I think Dave Aranda is going to have that team playing well this year. I think they're going to be a top 4 team of the Big 12, and I think there's a chance they could beat us. But that's really the only team, guys. Okay, Ed Rogers, come on. Come on, you can't do that. You cannot do that. 52-13, it's not going to happen. If Alabama beats Texas by more than 35 points, I will get an Alabama tattoo. Swear on my life. I will get an Alabama tattoo if Alabama beats Texas by, 5 touchdowns or more. That's not going to happen. Unless half our team dies on the field, it's not going to happen. This is a great question, Tyler Buckner or Jalen Milroe. Funny because Jalen Milroe was a Texas Longhorn, transferred from Texas. Or no, sorry. We recruited him under Tom Herman, and he decided to go to Alabama. Recruited him for the longest time. He fits that Tom Herman mold, that Sam Ehlinger type mold. So we know a lot about him. Tyler Buckner obviously was pretty good at Notre Dame. Wasn't great. Obviously, they replaced him with Sam Hartman, who is far superior in my opinion. I think Notre Dame will have a great year. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know when they're going to name a starter. That will be another interesting thing. Will Nick Saban drag this along, and will they split reps in that first game? I'm not 100% sure who Alabama plays the first game if they're able to do that, but that would be a very Nick Saban thing to do, to keep his cards as close as he can to his vest and figure out what he's going to do that second week versus Texas. I don't know if they play again the first week. Obviously, if it's a big game, he can't really do that. If it's not, if it's versus some nobody or a lower G5 school, I think he could do that, and it'll be interesting if he does decide to do that. Will Texas run for more yards than last year? That's a great question, because most of our yards, honestly, rushing obviously came from a top 5 running back in Texas history with Bijan Robinson. I think he had like 1,400 yards rushing, 300-something yards receiving. So do I think we'll run more as a team? That's a good question. So we need probably about 1,500, 1,600 yards rushing. Do I think that will happen? I don't think it's going to be very close. I think we're going to rely more on the passing game this year, but I will say I think we're going to try to set up the passing game with the run a lot more. I think we're going to see a lot more play action, a lot more deep balls down the field because you have Nair, a guy who's a very good deep threat. You have Xavier Worthy, a guy who's a very big deep threat, and A.D. Mitchell, a guy who's a very big deep threat. The only guy that I think consistently, and we saw this last year, moves the chains when he's healthy is Jordan Whittington. That was the third down receiver last year. So the other three guys are big play guys. Even Casey Kane caught a couple passes last year, and they were for big gains. So I think that's how this offense is going to honestly go is a lot of play action, a lot of deep balls, a couple passes underneath, but I think it's going to be a lot of play action and deep balls being set up by the run. So there's a possibility. That's just a hard question because I don't even know who running back one right now is. I think Jonathan Brooks will be. And I think there's a good chance he has a fantastic year. If I had to have like a dark horse Heisman candidate and just picking from my team, I would put Quinn Ewers 1, and I'd put Jonathan Brooks 2. I think those are the two guys. I think everyone's saying Xavier Worthy, but I think Xavier Worthy is going to have less production in years past. I think he's just going to be more consistent. He had a lot of drop passes last year. And I think A.D. Mitchell and Isaiah Nair will take away some of the yards and touchdowns that he had, though. But I do think his hands will be more sure than they were. He had a lot of drop passes. Is horns down a penalty in the SEC? That's a good question. I don't know. It shouldn't be a penalty in the Big 12. We honestly don't care. The only time I don't get bothered by it, but I get confused by it. I don't know if anyone pays attention to college baseball, but it was TCU versus Oral Roberts, and you see the horns down. Why? Why are you even thinking about us? You're in a college World Series, and you're thinking about Texas. It makes no sense to me, but you do what you got to do. But it shouldn't be a penalty for sure. I think that's dumb. Charisse, 37-28 Alabama. Very good possibility of that happening. I don't know what the spread is on that game. I think last year at game time, it was 9.5 or 10.5. Obviously, Texas covered that. It'll be interesting to see what the spread is this year on that game. Man, you guys are making predictions early on this Alabama game. 40-20 says Ed. I don't think it'll be that much of a blowout. I don't think the home field advantage is going to be anything Texas isn't used to, and I don't think Alabama is as good as they were last year. So it's going to be interesting for sure. Obviously, must-watch television, even if you're not a Texas or an Alabama fan, but it's going to be interesting. Charisse, I think Texas goes 10-2 this year with losses to Alabama and TCU or Kansas State. So we play TCU at TCU. I think that's one of the hardest places to play for Texas since they entered the Big 12. So definitely a possibility. I don't think Kansas State, with Deuce Vaughn not being there, beats us, especially at home. I just don't see that happening. TCU is a possibility. John, if Texas goes more than 2 losses with the talent Sark has this year, something's wrong. 100% agree. This to me is a 10-2 team at worst with a Big 12 championship berth and not a win. I think in the best case scenario, I think 11-1 with the Big 12 championship win in the college football playoff berth. But if we're talking realistic expectations, it has to be between 10-2 and 11-1. I don't expect them to go undefeated. If they do that, they'll be ranked the number 1 team in the country at the end of the year because they have a better schedule than Georgia. The only teams, obviously, maybe Ohio State or Michigan if they run the table, but they'll be no worse than 2, in my opinion. So if that happens, that's a absolutely fantastic year. I'm setting my expectations at the lowest bar, which is 10-2. If we go 10-2, I'm happy with that. But it can't be any worse than that. I 100% agree. Look, Mark joins us. Thank you, Mark, for joining us. Texas should have won last year's game if Monty Watts wouldn't have whiffed on that sack with seconds left. Ryan Watts whiffed on that. That was not a good play by him. You never go high, especially on a guy that's 5'10". Go low all the time, and a dynamic athlete in Bryce Young. I think he's going to be a good player in the NFL. He has a lot. I know people have said this. A lot of Patrick Mahomes qualities and Tom Brady qualities where he just wins. Like no matter the scenario, he just wins. There's nothing else I can say about him. There's nothing other than his escapability that's like, wow, he's spectacular. But he's just a winner, guys, and I think he's going to be a really good NFL quarterback. Mark, there is no problem for getting a first name. You gave me the last name. We are good here. You're all good. You have way more to think about college football-wise than I do. I just got to remember my team and know a little bit about every team. You need to know a lot about every team, so you're all good. Sharice, if Texas somehow beats Alabama this year, it will only be by a field goal at 38-35. I don't care if we beat them by one, guys. If we beat them, it'll be the biggest win since I'm not even going to bring up the 2018 Sugar Bowl because I don't think a bowl game is comparable to the regular season. I'm trying to think the biggest regular season win we've had probably since we beat Oklahoma when they were ranked number 1. We beat them 45-35 when Sam Bradford was the quarterback. I believe that was 2008. That was our biggest win. And unfortunately, we lost at Texas Tech that year, the Michael Crabtree catch, yada, yada, yada. No one wants to talk about that, I don't think. I don't want to talk about that. But that was probably our biggest regular season win. Honestly, I can't think of anything bigger recently. I'm not going to say the we're back game where we beat Notre Dame because Notre Dame ended up being terrible as did we that year. So unless anyone else can pull one up, I think that's our last big win. And that's crazy to think about, guys. That's 15 years ago. And that's a rival in the Big 12. Like, we always go back and forth with them. So that's our last big win. And that's sad that it's come down to that. And then if you talk about out of conference, our last big win, even worse, 5 versus Ohio State. Lima Sweet, corner of the end zone, gets that done, wins that game. That is 18 years ago. 18 years ago since our last big out-of-conference win. That is sad, honestly, thinking about what I shouldn't even have gotten into this because that just depresses me. 18 years, guys. And I didn't even get to watch that game, unfortunately. I was busy being dragged around as a child to wherever my parents wanted to go, so I was not able to watch that game. So that's our last big out-of-conference regular season win. That's crazy to think about. Yep, you nailed it. Like Mark said below you, he's an Ohio State transfer. By the way, I think he's going to have a fantastic year. He was pretty good last year. I think there's a really good chance he ends up being the best cornerback in the Big 12. It's going to be very interesting. I think it's another guy. He just turned 18 years old, which is crazy. Terrence Brooks, originally an Ohio State recruit, and he played last year as a 17-year-old freshman, guys, and was good. He was good as a 17-year-old freshman. That was the biggest surprise. His first game, I believe, versus TCU, and he was very good in that game. I can't remember any play in particular where he got beat. I think he's going to have a very good year as well. I'm really excited. I think this is the best cornerbacks room we've had since probably 09 or 05. I think you have to give like a third place medal to the room with Chris Boyd and Holton Hill. People forget Holton Hill was going to be a first round draft pick before he lost his head, man, and started doing really stupid stuff off the field. He was very good under Tom Herman in his first year. But those are the only names that I can think of. And it's going to be interesting. I think this defense has a chance to be very good. If they can just be average with what I believe to be a top 5 offense in the country, I think Texas is going to be very good, obviously. Wow. Burnt orange is a hideous color. I disagree. And I think most people disagree. I think if you were ranking college football uniforms, Texas is a top 5 uniform. I think we're a top 3 helmet. People put Oregon uniforms as number 1. I never understood that. I think they're very tacky and ugly for the most part. If I had to pick like a uniform that is better than Texas, I like Penn State's uniforms. I'm a classic guy. I don't like the things changed up too much. Oregon just goes a little bit too flashy. Penn State does have a good uniform. Alabama's is a little bit, I don't like the colors. I don't like the maroon or red or whatever you want to call it. So Penn State would probably be the only uniform I'd put above Texas, honestly. If Texas makes the playoff, will they be able to compete with Georgia, Michigan, etc., or they perform? No, they are much better on the defensive side of the ball than Oklahoma was. I think it will be a lot like imagine the Georgia-Oklahoma game where it was back and forth but lower scoring. I think it'll be like that. Especially, I could see Georgia blowing us out possibility. Michigan's not blowing us out. They don't have the athletes like that on the outside to blow us out. As you saw, TCU competed with them. We would compete with Michigan. There's no doubt in my mind. Georgia would be the only team where I could see maybe, and that's if they get good quarterback play. If they don't have quarterback play like Stetson Bennett offered them last year, who has been playing pretty well at the Rams apparently in OTAs for the Los Angeles Rams, then I think we have a chance to beat them and definitely compete with them. That'll be interesting. But Michigan, I think we can compete with for sure. It'll be interesting, but I definitely think we can compete with them. I think Texas has a good chance to win the Big 12 this year. I 100% agree. If we don't, it is a failure if we don't compete. So it'll be interesting. Terp, Penn State and Bama unis are way too bland. I like the color combination of Penn State. That's what gets me, and I do like the classic uniform vibes that you get from them. Alabama, I don't like the color combination. I don't like that maroon with the white. I just don't like it. Never have. I've always thought especially their helmets, not a fan of them. UCLA, okay. I like their uniforms. Ohio State, Michigan State, Kansas State, Ohio State. Listen, guys, I'm going to tell you something. I live in Ohio. I absolutely despise Ohio State, so I'm never going to say anything nice. I'm actually in my basement, and we have Ohio State stuff here all the time. Right now, I'm looking at an Ohio State banner. Not a fan, never will be. Sorry, but their uniforms are pretty nice. I don't think they're anything special. There's something special about Texas, guys. There's no other burnt orange. There's no other Longhorn. They have great uniforms. You're not going to convince me otherwise. What happens with Sark if Texas doesn't go to the conference championship game? Sharice then adds, especially with Quinn Ewers as quarterback. So if we don't get to the Big 12 championship game, okay, in the scenario that we go 10-2 and somehow don't reach the Big 12 championship game, let's say both of our losses are in conference play, then I believe Sarkisian stays. Sarkisian stays. If we go like 9-3 and all 3 losses are in the Big 12 or 2 losses in the Big 12 to Alabama, I think that's underperforming, and I would say he gets fired, but it's hard. Who do I replace Steve Sarkisian with? That's the thing, especially going in the SEC, especially with Arch Manning, who he recruited. I think honestly, Steve Sarkisian gets until as long as Arch Manning stays in Texas. I think he's hooked his wagon to Arch Manning. I think if Arch Manning pans out and as good as I think people think he can be, or not be in some cases, but I think as good as most rational people think he can be, then I think he's there for the long term. He goes far longer than people would think if Arch does well. If Arch doesn't do well and Texas struggles in the SEC and then Arch transfers or goes to the NFL, because let's be honest here, being that highly rated recruit out of high school and then also having that name, he's probably going to get drafted no matter what. Then I think he's gone. But I think he stays as long as Arch Manning stays. That's how I feel. Oh, Mark, thoughts on the Ohio State and UCLA? I do like UCLA's uniforms. UCLA, if you want to put them in number one, I'm cool with that. I didn't even think of them, but they have cool uniforms. I think North Carolina has great basketball uniforms. I don't really like them for football, but UCLA, I think Texas, if you want to put UCLA, Penn State, Texas, those would be probably my top 3 right off of my head. Maybe I'll do that next week, come up with my top 10 uniform list and where I think Texas ranks and helmet-wise as well. I'll throw that in there. Obviously, they're part of the uniform. Sarkisian isn't going anywhere until Manning fails. That's exactly how even if he doesn't fail, but if we struggle and then Manning graduates and goes to the NFL or leaves early, then I think he's gone. But I do believe he's there as long as Arch is there. That's my opinion. Matthew, you grew up in the Buckeye State. What went wrong? Thinking much better here for. Yeah, it would be better, but I mean, let's see. Ohio State has, in my lifetime, they've won 2 national championships and been a part of 4 or 5. It would be better, but Texas has been a part of 2 national championships and won 1. So it's not like in my lifetime. I agree. Consistency-wise, definitely would be better. But I'm just telling you right now, if Texas wins a national championship, I'm going to feel it way more than an Ohio State fan if they win a national championship, because we've been through so much, whereas Ohio State has been by far the most consistent program since the year 2000. Texas has been this. So I probably will cry if that happens. I'll probably be on here crying if it happens. I don't think it's going to happen this year. If it happens this year, I'm definitely going to cry because it's not expected. But it will be awesome when it happens. I didn't get to witness the 05 national championship. Unfortunately, I'll give you my age basically now if you can figure out simple math. I was 7 years old when they won the national championship. And unfortunately, I had a bedtime and I did not get to watch that game. I did get to watch the 09 game. And unfortunately for me, our starting quarterback got hurt very early on. Thank you, Marcel Barrios, for that. And I was depressed for a week after that. That bothered the absolute hell out of me because I believe if Colt McCoy plays that game, that was a 1-score game in the 4th quarter with Garrett Gilbert, who was terrible in college, honestly. And he played okay during that game, but not well enough. I believe Colt McCoy healthy. I think that's a field goal game. coin toss right into the very end. I truly believe that. I think that Texas offensively could figure out Alabama defensively. They weren't that Alabama of the Deshaun Watson years defensively. They were good, but they weren't that. If Quinn Ewers does well, do you think he can become a first rounder? 100%. There are places now. If you look at mock drafts, I believe you see Caleb Williams, Drake May, Quinn Ewers, and Michael Penix are like the 4 first round quarterbacks you see in mock drafts. Which right now, if you're drafting, like, let's just fast forward and Quinn Ewers has the same year as he did last year, and you're drafting Quinn Ewers in the first round, you're going to get fired as an NFL GM. There's no way, unless Quinn Ewers progresses the way he should progress, being the recruit he was, that he can be a first round pick. I think he has the talent to be that at some point, but I don't think he is right now. I think Caleb Williams is obviously the number 1 overall pick next year. I think if he isn't, I would be shocked. But I think Quinn Ewers, if he progresses, will be a first round pick this year. I do believe that. He's got all the talent. He just needs to be better with his footwork and his accuracy. And mostly that comes down to his footwork. If his footwork's clean, he's accurate. So it's basically the footwork. If he's more consistent with that, I think he's a first round pick. Tim, maybe a little homerism. He said, what'd he say? He said USC is one of the best jerseys, and nothing with baby blue, orange, or green should be considered. That's fair enough. That's homerism, but I like it. Mark chimes in again. Texas was within 3 and about 5 minutes left. Yes, they were. And then I believe Garrett Gilbert either fumbled or threw a pick inside her own 10, and they went in to score and make it 31-21, and then they got a late touchdown to make it 38-21. That game was a lot closer than people remember. Go watch the highlights. Jordan Shipley could not be covered in that game, by the way. Played fantastic. Unfortunately, his career in the NFL was derailed by injuries as well. We know how much the NFL values potential. 100%. You see this all the time, guys, where guys didn't really perform in college, but because of their high school rank, they get drafted for whatever reason. Quinn Ewers is definitely going to get drafted. There's no way the man doesn't get drafted unless he suffers a catastrophic injury. But first round pick, this is a very good quarterback class, by the way, coming out next year. One of the best probably in the past decade. So that is what makes me hesitate on that. Like, even if he has a great year, or a good year, I should say, that may not push him in the first round. He may have to have a great year. And by great, I mean finish top 5 in the Heisman. If he finishes top 5 in the Heisman and Texas goes 11-1, 10-2, wins the Big 12, I think he's a first round pick because you have data to back up what his recruiting ranking says, and what he did in college obviously goes along with that as well. And I think he'll absolutely kill the pro day or the combine, whatever one he wants to do. He's got a cannon, so it'll be interesting. Wow. Just constant shots to Texas in their color, apparently. I mean, burnt orange is better than – by the way, I think Oregon State is going to have a fantastic year with Jonathan Smith and DJU out there. DJ Uiagalelei, I believe. I'm terrible at pronouncing his name. Good at other names, but not that one. I think they're going to be a top 3 team in the Pac-12. I think the Pac-12 has a chance. I'm not convinced yet because I haven't done it in a while. I think they're going to be there, or has a chance to be, the second best conference in college football. It's going to be very interesting. I think you have the SEC and the ACC, and then those 3 in the middle between the Big 12, the Big 10, and the Pac-12 will be fighting for number 2 this year. So it'll be interesting. I like when the Pac-12 is good. I like staying up late and watching those games. I like when USC is good. I like when UCLA is good. I like when Washington's good. Obviously, Oregon State really doesn't have a history of being good, so it's nice to see them hop on the scene as well. But I have no issue with the Pac-12. I think it'll be interesting. Really, the conference I like to watch the least. It's funny. I'm from Ohio. I hate to watch Big Ten. Other than Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, it is boring. It is a snooze fest. They don't throw the ball enough. They run these 1990 style offenses, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I don't like watching them. So sue me. Great question, B-Man. Are Texas fans excited to join the SEC? So I remember exactly when this happened. I went to go play basketball. I'm driving down the highway. I hear on my radio, Texas and Oklahoma agreed to join the SEC, and I was shocked by it. I thought it was fake. I honestly thought it was fake. I was like, what? And then I read about it. Wasn't fake, obviously. Learned that they're doing it basically for the money. But then you realize what's in the SEC, and guys, we get to have all these rivalries renewed. We get Texas A&M, we get Arkansas, we get Oklahoma to come with us, so we'll still play them. I think there's a chance for Texas to get new rivalries. I think LSU is going to be a rivalry with us. We recruit a lot of the same players. We're very close. The fan base is already from that game where Joe Burrow went off and beat us in Texas in a fantastic game, by the way, in 2019. I hate each other from that. The players didn't like each other from that because they're recruited by the same guys, and they're also guys that went to high school with each other. So I think that's a chance to be a rivalry. I also think Florida is a chance to be a rivalry. I think those are two possibility of teams that could also become rivalries with Texas. So I mean, think about that. We could have Arkansas as a historic rival, Texas A&M as a historic rival, Oklahoma as a historic rival, and then you have LSU and Florida becoming new rivalries. I think there's a real possibility of that, and that'd be really fun. So I'm excited for the SEC, but again, I'm not looking forward to it. I want to see how we do this year. If we win the Big 12 this year and we go 10-2, 11-1, then I'm like, bring on the SEC. Let's go. The schedule just got released. I don't think it's super hard. I think it's an average or what the new average is going to look like for an SEC schedule. And if we can go in the SEC and go 8-4 the first year with Arch Manning as a freshman quarterback, but with a lot of talent around him, I think that's a good year for Texas as the first year in the SEC. So I'm excited. I think basketball, we have a real chance of being the best team in basketball in the SEC. I fully believe that. Baseball is going to – no one talks about that. Baseball, guys. SEC is by far and away going to be the best baseball conference. They're by far and away going to be the best football conference. For now, that could change if the Big Ten adds more teams. In basketball, we're probably one of the two best conferences. So the SEC isn't just dominating in football now. They're dominating in a lot of other sports because of bringing in Texas and Oklahoma. And then women's softball. I know no one really cares about that, honestly, until it's postseason time. But Oklahoma is one of the most dominant teams in college athletic history. They've won 3 straight national titles. They won like 57 games in a row at one point this year. So the SEC is only getting stronger by adding these brands. Harry Beaver. Wait a minute. That was 1980s type stuff. 3 years on. Okay, 1980s. Sorry, I'm young. 1980s type stuff. Maybe early 90s. Do you think Quinn Ewers could be a Heisman candidate this year? Yes, I do. I think if I'm ranking Heisman candidates on the team, like I said a little bit earlier, I would go Quinn Ewers, Jonathan Brooks, Xavier Worthy. Those would be my 3 Heisman candidates. My 4th guy would probably be Jatavian Sanders. And then 5th guy, I would probably go with Jalen Ford on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think that's going to happen. He was fantastic last year. Should have won the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. But I know, contrary to popular belief, or people say it's a conspiracy theory, the Big 12 was out to get Oklahoma and Texas last year. I believe on the road when Texas and Oklahoma played, they had like a combined 4 or 5 holds called against them. That's ridiculous and impossible unless you're clearly not calling holds, because guess what? You don't really like them anymore. And they gave it to Kansas State's player, Felix Anadike, who now plays for the Chief. I think he's a good player. I actually predicted him to be the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year at the beginning of the season with D4, and he was, but he shouldn't have been. He should have been second. Jalen Ford at linebacker should have been the Defensive Player of the Year in the Big 12. Paxton, where's D4? I have no clue. I've tried to reach out to D4 multiple times. I didn't invite him to this. When the season keeps going, or I might even try to get him to come on to the next one, I'll try to get him. But I don't know. Try to reach out to him on Twitter. I don't have his personal phone number, email, or anything like that. So I'll try to get him in here. Obviously, I like having him. Jonathan Brooks isn't a Heisman candidate at all. That's your opinion. Honestly, if you look back at the last 10 Heisman winners, most of those guys weren't in the top 10 to 12 of odds. So if you're picking in the top 10 to 12 odds, you're kind of throwing your money away. I think the only guy that I can think of that was probably Bryce Young. I know Lamar Jackson wasn't. Joe Burrow definitely wasn't. And you can go back. Most of those guys aren't in the top 10 to 12 of odds. And so if you're betting on one of those guys, they're most likely not going to win it. And I think Caleb Williams could have a better season than last year if you give him a couple more touchdowns and 200 or 300 more yards, and he still may not win it. You know why? Because they hate voting for the same guy twice for Heisman. It's only happened once, as everyone knows. So and Bryce Young, guys, last year had a better year, in my opinion, than he did the year before. Wasn't even invited. So I don't see that happening. I think Caleb Williams will be the best player in college football. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman again. I don't think that's a hot take. So I think it'd be smart. I think it'll be smart to add those people. Or add someone outside of the top 10 to 12 if you're going to bet for the Heisman that that will probably happen. Texas will finish 10th or worse their first. No, they will not. No, they will not. No, they're not going to finish 10th or worse in the SEC. We can get into that next week. I will break down the schedule. I'll break down other people's schedule. Texas will not finish 10th or worse. Again, tell you what, if Texas finishes 10th or worse in the SEC, I will get a tattoo, horns down. Just like I said, Alabama, it's not going to be, as someone said, I believe 50-13 or something like that. By more than 35, I said I'll get an Alabama tattoo. That's not going to happen. I'm not even worried about that one. Texas isn't finishing 10th or worse. That's not going to happen. The schedule's not that hard. Florida's not going to be very good next year. LSU, I don't know the SEC schedule off the top of my head. I don't think Mississippi State's going to be very good. I think they hired the wrong coach. So we play Vanderbilt. We'll beat them. Guys, we're not finishing 10th. You can clip it all you want. We're not finishing 10th in the SEC. I will get a horns down tattoo if we do that. We're not. 10th or worse, I will get a tattoo. That means, guys, name me right now. Go look at our schedule real quick, and then name me the 9 teams that are going to finish ahead of us. It's not going to happen. Thank you. Exactly. That is way more realistic. I think we'll probably finish 6th or 7th, honestly. A&M probably is going to have a new coach next year, guys. And Jimbo Fisher ain't going to be there. He's not a good coach. He's been, guys in College Station have been bamboozled by that man. He has stolen so much money from you guys. He's not a good coach. He'll probably be gone. It'll be a hard game for sure because it's at College Station and it's a rivalry renewed. Arkansas, I'm not sure yet what to think about them. Obviously jumping 2 years into the future. So I think we go probably 7-5, 8-4 with that schedule, and that puts you in not 10th place in the SEC. Charisse, 100%. That's a very interesting game. I want to go to that game. I don't know if I'll be able to get tickets or even be able to afford them. It'll be interesting to see. They play at Michigan. I have a Michigan friend. I would love to go to that game. There's multiple games I would love to go to. Honestly, looking at the schedule, they play in Nashville. I think those tickets will be semi-cheap compared to the Ohio State and Michigan ones. So I may go to that game. Will any of the summer enrollees start? Most likely not. Most summer enrollees don't start, so I don't really see that happening, Paxton. It'll be interesting. Do I think they will get playing time? 100%, absolutely. Do I think they will start? No, most likely not. It does help you, but it doesn't give you, in my opinion, a gigantic advantage. I'm trying to think of guys last year. Maybe Cole Hudson, yes. So Cole Hudson was a summer enrollee and he did play. But if Junior Angelau doesn't get hurt, does he play? Does he start, I should say? And that's a good question. I don't know. So I don't think so, but we'll have to see. What Texas losses are you predicting? So right now, without breaking down the schedule, like I said, next week I will break down the schedule for you guys here. I will also probably predict the first 2 games of the schedule. Well, I'll just break here. I'll let this up to you guys. You guys want me to break the whole schedule down next Tuesday or do 2 or 3 games next week? I don't know if I should do one way or the other. I'll leave that up to you guys. You guys are the viewers. You guys are here. So I'll leave that up to you guys. Throw it in the comments if you want me to break down the schedule and go game by game. You get my prediction, or you guys want me to do 2 or 3 games every week. Like I said, I'm going to be here most Tuesdays, if not all. Maybe not the one before the 4th of July or on the 4th of July. I believe the 4th of July is a Tuesday, so I probably won't be here for that one, but I'll be here every other Tuesday going forward and every Tuesday going into the season. So can you please let me know if you'd like me to break down the schedule game by game next week or just do 2 or 3 games next week? Again, can you please hit that like button? Please subscribe down below. It really helps out the channel. Please go over to the Texas channel, guys, if you're on Mark's channel, and subscribe there. We're trying to grow that brand. We offer post-game shows. I'm going to make it, like I said, doing this Tuesday live show every week. I'm going to try to come up with some creative content and do it for that channel as well. So can you please hit that like button and please subscribe to that channel. If you want to support Mark, go to the Patreon and subscribe there. They have a bunch of stuff going on over there. Go subscribe to his other channels as well and like those videos. Thank you very much, guys. Can Brent Venables turn it around, or will he fail at Oklahoma? Good question. I don't know. The last coach to fail at Oklahoma was a long time ago. It was before I was born. Oklahoma is one of the most consistent athletic programs in college football. Programs in college football. Sorry. And I think he'll be successful. I don't think he's ever going to get it to where Bob Stoops and Lincoln Riley had it. I don't think they're going to be winning SEC championships anytime soon, but I think they can win 8 to 9 games in the SEC. I think they could be like Arkansas is under Sam Pittman type thing. I just don't see it, guys. Until he proves it to me, I just don't see him being super successful. I don't think he's going to be a total failure. He might be a failure in Oklahoma's fans' eyes, but I don't think he's going to flop unless, again, Oklahoma fans consider 8 to 9 wins a year a flop in the SEC. As a Texas fan, I guess I would kind of consider that a failure. So I guess I would say he does fail then. I think, to me, at Texas and Oklahoma moving to the SEC, I think you're going to have to win 9 to 10 games a year consistently, and then every 5 to 6 years compete for the SEC championship, like being the top 3 or 4. So that'll be interesting to me. He was not good last year, guys, and he's supposedly a defensive coach, and they were god awful on that side of the ball. So it'll be very interesting. And I don't think Jeff Levy is a very good offensive coordinator, honestly. That's a good question. The last year we finished, I believe, 3rd in the recruiting rankings. This year, I don't even know where we're at. Honestly, I never really look at that until the season's over. I know we have been slow though. Recently, though, we got Santana Wilson, son of Adrian Wilson, at cornerback, and then we got Freddie Du Bois, wide receiver. So we've been putting them together. We'll end with a top 10 class. I'm pretty confident saying that, but it is slow right now for sure. I will do what Will says. That's the only comment we've got on it. So I'll go 2 to 3 games in depth. I'll do the first 3 games next week. I believe that's Rice, Alabama, and then I believe we play Louisiana Monroe. So I'll definitely do those in depth, especially the Alabama game. I probably will hit 5 minutes on the other 2 games and probably 15 minutes on the Alabama game. And obviously take your comments and questions, but those will be the 3. I can explain that. So, like I said, I'm from Ohio. My family is Ohio State fans. I don't think we have any Michigan fans. I'm pretty confident in saying that. So every year for New Year's Eve, since we have German heritage, we go over to my aunt's house and we watch the Rose Bowl. And we're sitting there, we're watching Texas versus Michigan. Obviously, everybody hates Michigan, so they're rooting for Texas. And I just fall in love with Texas that year. That's the year before they win the national championship. I asked my mom to get me a Vince Young jersey. I have a Vince Young jersey. I wear that Vince Young jersey. Funny thing is, the next time they compete in the Rose Bowl, it's for the national championship. I wear that to school. I will never forget, guys. I'm in 2nd grade, and I have so many 7th and 8th graders telling me USC is the best team of all time. USC is going to smoke you guys. Ohio State would have done better if we played them. I'm telling you, and I just start telling them, hey, you haven't watched Vince Young, watch what Vince Young's going to do. I literally say that as I'm wearing my Texas jersey the game that day, and I'm saying, watch what he's going to do. I unfortunately don't get to watch what he's going to do because I'm forced to go to bed, seeing as I'm 7 years old, and 7 or 8, and I can't watch it, but I'm woken up late at night by my mom, and she tells me, hey, they won. And I wake up, see the score, and as time has gone on, I've realized I have missed the biggest game in the history of college football, probably. So that was cool that we won. It was not cool that I did not get to watch. This weekend will be a big weekend for Texas recruiting. Yes, I saw that. A bunch of 5 stars, a bunch of 4 stars. It'll be a gigantic weekend. I also what I like about this recruiting staff is when they have bunch of visits like this, they always get 1 or 2 commitments. So I guarantee you, out of this weekend, we will get 1 or 2 commitments. They always do that. I think they're going to get 1 or 2 this week, maybe more. I saw a tweet by somebody in the Texas community space saying, Texas fans, be prepared for a big weekend. I think stuff's going down. So I think there's a good chance we'll probably get even more than 2 guys here. So it'll be very interesting and very cool if we can do that. Paxton are starting 2025. 2025, yes, I believe he starts in 2025. I think there's obviously Quinn this year. I think there's a really big chance, guys. If I had to put a percentage on it, that Malik Murphy is their starting quarterback next year. I think 70% unless he transfers. And then I think Arch from there on out. B Bean, sorry. That Texas USC Natty was one of the best of all time, 100%. I've watched the highlights. I watched the game probably twice in full. It definitely is a top 3 college football game ever. I'm trying to think. The only game live that I considered to be even close to that was the Clemson Alabama National Championship game. That was a freaking phenomenal game. Jalen Hurts leads them down, scores. Deshaun Watson leads them back, scores with like 2 seconds left. That was a great game. USC Penn State was also very good in the Rose Bowl. Saquon going wild. Sam Darnold making you think he's going to be the next great quarterback in the NFL, which turns out not to be. Turns out to be a huge bust. Those are the 2 games that come to mind. Obviously, if I watch the Texas USC game and I'm a Texas fan and I get to watch it live, I probably think that's the best game of all time that I've seen live, but I didn't get to watch that live. So those would be my 2 best games live. I think Texas, just watching the replay and the highlights, obviously, and what went on. I mean, guys, people on ESPN at the time were talking about USC as the best college football team of all time. That's not a joke. Like, people were saying this team would run through everyone. They had won like 33 games in a row, 34 games in a row. And they had the back-to-back Heisman winners. I mean, they were phenomenal, guys. I think there was like over 50 guys between both teams from that game that played in the NFL. It's probably the best college football game ever, and it's a shame that I didn't get to watch it. What do you mean by do Texas fans know Sark's history? Like history as a head coach, or do you mean like history as a head coach, like on the field or offensive coordinator on the field, or do you mean his alcohol problems? I'm kind of confused by that. So please clarify on that. Now, what's the question? Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. I try to keep up with all sports. If I had to say my knowledge, I would probably go NFL or baseball, and then college football would be second or third between those 3. NBA, I know a lot of NBA too. I honestly know a lot about most sports that I follow. I don't really follow soccer unless they're big names like Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, Mbappe, those guys. I don't really follow college baseball. I follow college basketball a lot, especially when Texas is good, which they were phenomenal this year. So I just love sports, honestly. Okay, so yes, as a coach, 100% we know his history. I think Texas fans overrate his skills as a head coach. I think other people underrate him. I think he's a solid head coach who has gotten some bad luck with his record. And when he joins Washington, guys, again, he's 0-12 when he joins them. They go 6-6 with him as their first year head coach, I believe, or 5-7, I think. Sorry, and then they go 6-6 or 7-5 his second year. So he wasn't terrible at Washington. He got to USC. The alcohol problems obviously were with him then. They probably were with him at Washington too. So it's hard to judge him. That's the issue. When he's been an offensive coordinator, he's been phenomenal. I think this is honestly probably his last chance at coaching in college football as a head coach. So he better seize the moment. So far, so good. I like what he's done recruiting wise. I think we took steps. We went from 5-7 to 8-5. The next step is going 10-2, in my opinion, at least, especially with the talent that we have on our roster compared to the talent that we're playing. So we'll see. I think this is the year to judge him very harshly. And no need to apologize. You're all good. Miami, Nebraska 84 was a classic. I unfortunately was not born. I was negative 13 years old for that game. So I do not know that game. I might go YouTube it, watch that a little bit. Offenses back then, though, I don't know if I could deal watching that because I believe Nebraska ran option. I don't know what Miami ran. So it would be interesting. That would be fun. Texas versus Oregon State in the national championship game. I don't know if I'd get a lot of views because Texas and I think Oregon State has a pretty passionate fan base, but nationally, I don't think it'd get many views. Texas losing to Texas Tech on the field. Now I'm on the recruiting trail. You guys have beaten us like 5 times in the Big 12, so I know. Recruiting, you guys could get Micah Hudson. That'd be a gigantic pickup for you guys. I think you guys are going to finish in the top 3 in the Big 12 this year. So I think Texas Tech's going to have a good year. I don't have any hate toward Texas Tech this year. I got the beefs and somebody. I can't hate on Oregon State. So whatever you want to say about your Beavers, you go ahead and say about your Beavers. I think they're going to have a good year. I think there's a possibility they finish in the top 3 in the Pac-12. I think it could be USC and then Oregon State. We'll have to see. I think Texas beats Oklahoma again this year, but I don't think it'll be a blowout like last year, though. I 100% agree. 49-0 is not going to happen again. If I had to predict the score right now, I think Texas wins 37-23. I think it's a good game, as it usually is, until the fourth quarter, and then we pull away. So last year, obviously, Dylan Gabriel's hurt. Bevel comes out for Oklahoma, and he was god-awful. They won't be as bad on offense this year, even if Gabriel can't play for whatever reason. I think their defense will be a little bit better. Shut it down. Too many haters. Hook 'em horns, buddy. Actually, I am going to shut it down, guys. We're at about an hour and 5 minutes. Can you guys please hit that like button? Please subscribe down below. We are going to be here every Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Go over to the Texas channel, subscribe there, like the content over there as well. Please, guys, we're trying to grow that brand. Please do that. I'm going to try to get a D4, another guest on next week. We probably won't be on the week after that, but I will be here all summer long breaking down Texas football, talking with you guys. Next time on, we will break down the Rice game, the Alabama game, and then I believe the Louisiana Monroe game as the third game, in-depth analysis. And thank you guys for watching. Again, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Go over to Mark's Patreon. Subscribe to that. Those guys are great over there. You guys have been awesome. Again, I will be here all the rest of the summer leading into the season, and I'll be here every Tuesday breaking down that current week's game. After that, on the Saturdays, and then the one Friday game that we have, I will be here after the game talking about the game, breaking it down here on Mark Rogers TV over at the Texas channel. We'll probably have 1 or 2 games on the main channel as well. So please, guys, hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you. Hook 'em, guys, and thank you for watching.